Why Napoleon Hill chose Henry Ford. The secret behind his mind. When Napoleon Hill set out to discover the secrets of success, he didn't begin with the richest men or the most educated ones. He began with those whose minds were disciplined, focused, and driven by purpose. Out of the thousands of successful people he studied, one man stood out not for his wealth alone, but for the way he thought. That man was Henry Ford. Why Ford? Because Ford represented the purest expression of what Hill called definiteness of purpose. He wasn't the smartest man in the room, nor the most refined. But Ford had a clear vision and the mental toughness to follow it through, even when the world laughed in his face. He wasn't interested in surface-level success. He was looking for mindset, character, and the invisible forces behind achievement. Ford was the perfect case study. Born in 1863 on a small farm in Michigan, Henry Ford's life could have followed the expected path: farm work, local survival, quiet obedience. But even as a boy, Ford was fascinated by machinery. He wasn't interested in horses or fields. He wanted to understand how things worked. At the time, such ambition from a poor farm boy seemed naive. But in Hill's language, Ford had already discovered his definite, major purpose to make machines that improved human life. He left home at 16 to pursue work in Detroit, starting as a machinist apprentice. He had no formal education in engineering or business, no powerful family backing him, no credentials. But what he did have was unshakable belief. Hill noted this trait over and over in Ford's career. He didn't just dream, he believed those dreams could become machines, businesses, and movements. Ford failed many times. His first car company went bankrupt. His investors left him. His second attempt nearly collapsed under pressure. But failure didn't stop Ford, it forged him. Hill wrote that every failure Ford experienced sharpened his purpose and strengthened his will. What made Henry Ford exceptional wasn't just his vision, but his mental discipline. In a famous legal case, lawyers tried to humiliate Ford on the witness stand, asking him questions about history and politics to prove he was uneducated. Ford calmly replied that he had a row of buttons on his desk, and with one push, he could summon someone to answer any question he didn't know. "Why should I clutter my mind," he said, "with useless facts when I have men around me who can supply any knowledge I require?" That single answer embodied what Hill taught in all his works. Success comes not from knowing everything, but from knowing how to organize knowledge and direct it with focused intent. Ford surrounded himself with people who knew what he didn't. That wasn't ignorance, it was strategic thinking. Napoleon Hill believed that Ford was a master of applied faith, an act of believing in something so strongly that it becomes reality. When Ford insisted on producing a car affordable enough for every American worker, people called him insane. He didn't care. He told his team, "I'm going to democratize the automobile." They said it couldn't be done. Ford did it anyway. The Model T was the result, not a luxury for the elite, but a dependable machine that farmers, teachers, and factory workers could own. Ford once said, "There is no use trying to sell anything to a man who can afford it." So he made sure they could. That required mass production, which Ford pioneered not just mechanically, but mentally. He believed work should serve people, not enslave them. So in 1914, he shocked the world by doubling worker wages to $5 a day. His competitors called him a fool. Business insiders said he would bankrupt his company. But Ford knew something they didn't. A well-paid worker is a loyal worker and a potential customer. He wasn't just building cars, he was building a system of abundance, one that recycled wages into the economy and uplifted the middle class. Ford's influence didn't stop at production lines. He was a living example of mental mastery. He said, "Whether you think you can or think you can, too right." That wasn't just a phrase, it was his reality. Ford believed that the mind had the power to shape results. That negative thinking was a virus and doubt was the disease of the unsuccessful. Napoleon Hill echoed this idea in every chapter of Think and Grow Rich. The mind is the battleground. What you allow into your thoughts shapes your destiny. Ford didn't allow self-pity. He didn't dwell on failure. He simply asked, "What's next?" and moved forward. Was Ford perfect? No. He was criticized for some of his rigid ideas and controversial views, but Hill wasn't studying saints, he was studying patterns. And the pattern Ford exemplified was this: a clear purpose, pursued with faith and action, produces power. Hill admired that Ford never stopped learning, even if he didn't do it through books or universities. He learned through action, trial, error, and feedback. He listened to machines. He listened to people. He listened to the results. By the time Hill published his major works, Ford was already a global icon. But Hill didn't admire him just for his fame. He admired him because Ford embodied the invisible laws of success: purpose, focus, faith, organized effort, and persistence. Ford was living proof that you don't need to be born great, you just need to think greatly. Henry Ford wasn't a businessman. He was a thinker who changed the way we live. He proved that success isn't about titles or intelligence, it's about clarity of purpose and faith in motion. That's why Napoleon Hill studied him. That's why the world remembers him. So here's your question. Do you know your purpose? Do you believe in it as fiercely as Ford did? Because when your thoughts are clear, your path will be too. If this inspired you, like this video, subscribe for more insights from the greatest minds in history. Share it with someone who's ready to start building something bigger than excuses. Because belief is the first machine you must build.